Welcome to The Microscopists, a bite-sized bio podcast, hosted by Peter O'Toole, sponsored by Zeiss Microscopy. Today on The Microscopists...
Today on The Microscopists, I meet with Gail McConnell, Professor of Physics and Director of the Centre of Biophotonics at the University of Strathclyde. And not only do we talk about her groundbreaking work developing new imaging instruments and techniques, but we also discuss her career highlights.
You know, getting the first Mesolens up and running, seeing the first results there, the first sort of continuing results, where you see that this is actually going to work.
How she once ruffled feathers at an international conference.
We're not happy with you. You've scooped us. We were working on that for 3 years.
Despite becoming the first female physics professor at Strathclyde at just 34, Gail still had doubts early in her career.
I think it was also, to use some new language, imposter syndrome, when I was convinced that absolutely everybody surrounding me really knew what, they had it together.
And Gail still being able to maintain a healthy work-life balance.
Professionally, yeah, I can totally see the point in that. Personally, it doesn't really fit with my plans, so it's a bit of a tough one.
All in this episode of The Microscopists. Hello, I'm Peter O'Toole from the University of York, and today on The Microscopists, I'm joined by Gail McConnell from the University of Strathclyde. Hello, Gail.
Hello, Peter. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I've worked this out how long we've known each other, and I think it's 19 years.
Your calculation matches mine. I would say almost 19 years, April 2003.
Go on, where was it then?
Genoa.
What? I don't. Which one? I don't know if I know her or not.
Focus on microscopy. Albie Diastro being a super host as ever.
Yes. No, yeah, it was FOM in Genoa. But can you ever say Genoa and go, I don't know. Who? I don't know if I know her or not, if you know her.
Have I got an hour of this?
You should have known they were coming.
Oh dear. I can blame a terrible Wi-Fi connection, but yeah, it's not going to happen.
So yes, FOM Genoa, which was my big first international conference.
It was not mine, but it was my first European international conference, strangely. As a PhD student, I'd gone to meetings in San Francisco and in Baltimore. I'm not going to say it too loudly, so I'll kind of sort of watchy whisper it, but they were not as good as FOM. They were too big. And as a PhD student, you don't know anybody, so you can't meet everybody and have a chat. FOM is, it's a few hundred folk. I was kind of blown away by, apart from anything else, I mean, Genoa is a lovely city. Yeah, it was just great to actually meet and talk to people. Thoroughly enjoyed that. Great meeting. But Albie knows how to throw a party, so it's worth going for that one.
It was I just thought you sent me some pictures, didn't you? I'm not very organised at all today.
Yeah, I strap yourself in.
And actually, it's probably.
Yeah, that's not FOM.
No.
That's another Albie shebang.
It was Albie's gig, wasn't it?
Yes.
FOM and Genoa.
I think this was about 2018-ish. I mean, it seems a wee bit kind of any excuse to get some friends together, but there's good scientific merit in all of this. It's not all fancy dinners and drinking.
But obviously, it's not just Albie that's on that picture. Do you want to talk us through who else is on there?
Oh, if I can remember, so we've got Martin Lehheim, some idiot in a pink jumper, Albie Diastro, we've got Sarah Abrahamson, Colin Shepherd, and Ksenia, who I believe is now, she was at Heriot Watt the last time, I think I heard. So yeah, I'm guessing she's still there.
That's a pretty powerful set of microscopists.
Yeah, take me out the picture.
But no, if you look at their impacts on the field, it is pretty big. So no, it was FOM, and I remember, I think just two of us went for dinner because I knew no one. I think Stefan Turing and Timo Zimmerman, I knew those two, and then you kind of know some of the companies that are there, but that was about it. So
my recollection of this is slightly different, and it's when I appeared at the registration desk. Now, slightly nervous, I'm kind of early career postdoc at this point, And you appeared behind me and just started talking at me as if you knew me. And I was thinking, who is this guy? I'm normally pretty good at remembering folk. And you just, oh yeah, you're from the UK, what is it you do? Blah, 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 blah. And at that point, I thought, right, okay, this is going to be fine. But the only other memory I have of that meeting, apart from the wine waiters, you know, kind of making a bit of a fuss, which was all lovely, was one evening you and I went for a beer somewhere, and we'll call it a very character-filled place. We were sitting outside, it was like sitting next to the bins, you know, having a beer, lovely evening, and you were just berating me because you were like, why didn't you go and see the Flim Woman? The Flim Woman was amazing. She had a fringe. This stuff was terrific. You should have seen this. And I was like, well, I don't know. I think it was in the, you know, the multi-photon session or so. You missed it, Gail. You don't know what you're missing. You should have seen it. I wish you could have been there. And this went on for a good hour and a half. So, you know, I still don't know who the Flim Woman is. This could have changed my entire career.
That was a lifetime ago.
No, it's still fresh in my mind.
Yeah, I guess I'm a lot quieter now.
Has age mellowed you? Is that what you're trying to tell me? It's not happening. I don't believe you.
Absolutely. I probably had coffee or something. I wasn't used to having caffeine.
I think genuinely you were just excited about the Flim.
Yeah, it was a really good conference. And the parallel sessions, it was one of those few times where actually it was very hard to know which parallel to go to.
Yeah, and there was not 10 parallel sessions. It's kind of 2 or 3. That's nice. It means you don't miss too much, except the Flim.
So what was your main go-to conference now then?
I'm not really sure I have one. I find increasingly that, especially because of the Mesolens project, we're not quite microscopy any longer. It's imaging, it's optical, you know, there's kind of appropriate phrases there. But the mesoscale thing, I don't know. I'm not really sure we fit anywhere any longer, so we tend to go to just, you know, whatever we think will be useful and interesting. We increasingly, though, I guess because of the biological applications that we're doing now, I'm sending students and postdocs to meetings that I don't know anything about, you know. So we're writing abstracts now, for example, for neurobiofilms. I know next to nothing about this meeting, but, you know, the lineup looks tremendous. You know, students are desperate to go, great, you know. So I'm not sure we have any go-to meetings. The one or two, I guess, is that I would probably routinely turn up to are Frontiers in Bioimaging and MMC in the UK. And it's not just because they're down the road. I quite like the kind of size of these meetings. I find that when you go to the kind of larger international conferences, as I said previously, you kind of meet about 2% of the people that are there. I don't really enjoy that. I like the kind of more intimate meetings where you actually talk to the people that are there.
It's interesting that you're sending your PhDs or postdocs to meetings that are slightly outside the optics field.
Very outside the optics field.
That's interesting. If you think about it, if you read grant proposals and then say, how are you going to disseminate what your science is? And you hear it's the same meetings that they're going to disseminate it to. But they're talking to like-minded people who aren't the end users of it necessarily. So you're now sending to the bio meetings that the more application orientated, which is where you are a bit of fish out of water because you're more niche, but you're providing a solution. So I presume this is a way of actually taking your developments to the field that are going to need it, rather than just talking to microscopists, you're talking to the end users.
Yeah, I mean, I guess this is one of the very many problems with grant applications is that they often hide more than they reveal, and the structure and format of grant applications doesn't really allow you to think about, you know, what happens beyond, for example, the scope of the grant. And I realise there's follow-on funding and all these types of things, but I guess primarily in my group we develop methods and instruments, and if those are unsuccessful, we don't go to meetings like neurobiofilms or, you know, the kind of applications based. We need to have done that work first before we get to the applications. And often what we find is when we develop some new technology or other, we think it's going to be really successful in one application area, and actually it turns out that the applications are somewhere completely different, and it's difficult to predict.
So let's just go back in time. So you're now Professor of Physics, Director of the Biophotonics.
Aye, something like that, yeah.
Interesting. What is biophotonics?
Is there a verb in that sentence? I'm not entirely sure. Why is biophotonics? Sounds like, why is Peter? Why is Gail? Why is biophotonics? Certainly in my case, biophotonics is because it was a term that existed before I appeared. So I was a PhD student in the physics department, and I had a job lined up in industry. This was kind of summer 2001. I had no plans to remain in academia whatsoever. I actively did not want to stay in academia. And then in September 2001, international events for World Trade Center and so on meant that a lot of graduate recruiters panicked and withdrew their job offers, and I was one of the folk that were affected. So obviously very minor in the grand scheme of the political situation at the time, but it meant that I'm thinking about how to pay my rent. So my PhD advisor at the time, Alison Ferguson, had said, "Oh, we've got this 3 month postdoc in this new centre for biophotonics that we're setting up. Would you be interested in that?" Of course, I'm going to say yes. So I appear there, and yeah, that's why biophotonics, because the Centre for Biophotonics had just opened a few months previous to this. There was a wee bit of postdoc cash. I turn up. Biophotonics is what they are doing, and so that's therefore what I am doing and what I'm kind of still doing, I guess.
So, when you were 10 years old, to take you way back, that sounds really insulting. Sorry, to take you back to when you were 10, not way back. I'm not saying you really.
It's way back. It's fine. All measurements are relative. Yeah.
So when you were a young girl, what was your aspiration? What did you want to be? Where did you see your future at that age?
Have any aspirations? I mean, that makes it sound as if I was thinking about what was going to happen when I was like this age. I absolutely was not. I did not really have any kind of aspirations, motivator, drivers. I mean, I probably had family around me that would kind of suggest things. But I did know by the time I was 10, I had my first home computer, and that was a ZX Spectrum Plus. And the first thing you do is you load in a game and you have a wee play, and that's all very nice. And then I realised that there was a wee bit more to it than this, and that if I typed certain words in, other things could happen, like you could turn the screen blue. And I realised that, as a 9 or 10-year-old, being able to turn the screen blue and have control over this, I found it quite powerful. So then I started teaching myself some basic programming, and I realised, my mum's coming up to my bedroom where I'm sitting, it's the middle of summer, go outside and play, but I'm interested in, kind of effectively 8-bit computing at this point. So yeah, but I still went out and played because I like being outdoors. So yeah.
What was your favourite computer game?
Oh, right, okay, there's so many. Do you mean then or now?
Now go to your ZX Spectrum first, and then we'll go to now.
ZX Spectrum. Right, well, so the first game I played would have been Horace Goes Skiing.
Oh, forgot all about that.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a kind of Frogger style. You have to navigate a little spider called Horace across a busy road to start with, and then there's some complete discontinuity. Somebody had clearly been taking the good drugs at this point, because once you get Horace to the bottom of this slalom, it cuts screen. No, sorry, you get him across the road, and then you have to make him go skiing down a slalom, and then you go back and the traffic gets a bit busier, so then you have to get him across the screen from top to bottom, Frogger style. Then you take him down the slalom again, but there's more little goals. I mean, what made somebody think that what we really need is a traffic-based scenario coupled with skiing? What's that about? I have no idea. But probably the games I enjoyed more were a bit later, when they were kind of platform-based, Jet Set Willy, Manic Miner, roller coaster, that type of thing, where you had control over a single person, graphics improved and so on. So yeah, that. Now it's totally different. You still have control over a person, but I like kind of open world strategy style games.
So are you still a gamer then?
Yes. So in fact, I was doing a practice Viva with one of my students last night, who's also a gamer. So after the practice Viva, we spent, a good half hour chatting about what games we're playing and so on. And I told him that I'm currently playing Fallout 76, and he berated me for this. He went through me, he said, "Why are you playing this? It's terrible." And I had to explain to him that it's now on something like season 7, it's been through iterations, it's much better, it's a bit more like Fallout 4. I'm still working my way through Fallout 76, and I've done the main parts of the game, and I just cannot let it go. I'm going to have to move on, because I found myself thinking at midnight last night I could just go back in, and I thought, no, I really need to get up early tomorrow. This is not happening.
And what's your console?
Oh, right. So we've got a Switch, PS4 and PS5. And my partner is now also playing Fallout 76. So he's using the PS4, I'm using the PS5. He's sitting with an iPad, I'm sitting with the TV. Yeah, it's ridiculous. You know, the conversation is mainly Fallout based at the moment.
Yes. So moving on. So what got you into physics?
Oh, good question. A person rather than a set of circumstances. I think when I went to secondary school, I had a very good physics teacher, a guy called Jim Tinney. And Jim, I guess, would be described as a kind of typical geek, nerd, etc. But I quite liked the sense of humour. I liked the fact that it was logical, it was kind of analytical, that if you repeat measurements, you know, you build up a kind of statistical set. I just started to kind of get to grips with the fact that this is quite interesting and elegant, and I liked the rules that surrounded it. And then I kind of fell away from science for a bit. I had never intended to study physics at university. I'd applied to study modern languages and I'd accepted a place. And then at the 11th hour, I changed my mind, decided it wasn't vocational enough. Entered physics through clearing because I didn't have the appropriate qualifications. Struggled for about the first year, then started to really enjoy it.
So you say you didn't have the best qualifications at A level to go into university, and that first year was, I guess, catch-up time?
A bit of that, but I think it was also, to use some new language, imposter syndrome, where I was convinced that absolutely everybody surrounding me really knew what, you know, they had it together, they knew what they were doing. And then kind of towards the end of the first year, I noticed that a lot of these people are dropping out, but I'm still in the room. And I'm not maybe doing as badly as I thought. Yeah, I'm still there. And then I realised that maybe if I put in a wee bit more work, I could actually be quite good at this. And I'm not saying I was good, but I certainly, there was an improvement, a considerable improvement.
Was that at Strathclyde as well?
Yeah. So I've gone from school to Strathclyde and I'm still at Strathclyde effectively.
Wow, that's pretty rare.
Very unusual.
Yeah, I remember when I was doing a PhD. Well, actually, I did my undergraduate, PhD, and my first postdocs at the same place.
Even that's unusual.
Yeah, which was unusual, and still have a career, even more unusual. Just very lucky, I think.
But luck has so much to do with it.
It does. You always recommend it. You must have been told, if you're going to succeed, you have to move. And that's what I was always told. You know, you shouldn't really do the PhD in the same place, but the lab was great. Why am I going to leave one of the best labs? And then you do your PhD, then the postdoc goes, well, I can carry on working in one of the best labs and carry on doing what I'm good at. But, you know, in the end, I got itchy. I needed a move to freshen up. But you must have had the same advice.
And I'm still receiving the same advice, even now. It's, you know, you should think about, you know, having some time overseas and so on. But, I mean, professionally, yeah, I can totally see the point in that. Personally, that doesn't really fit with my plans, so it's a bit of a tough one. I guess I was also lucky in as much as that I had a couple of fellowships that meant that for the best part of about 7 years, because these fellowships run kind of with a bit of overlap between them, although I was nominally employed to work at Strathclyde, I didn't spend a lot of time there. You know, I visited labs worldwide and, you know, get a sense of how to work differently from what I had either experienced previously or what I saw around me. And that I think was quite useful.
So obviously it's had no negative effect on your career.
We don't know that. Maybe it has.
Well, you hit professorship at a fairly young age.
I'm trying to work it out now, but yeah, I think it was about 34, 35. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I realise, yeah.
Which is very young to get a professorship, and in the world of physics as well. It is, again, you must have been one of the first professors in physics at Strathclyde.
Professors in physics?
Female.
Female.
Yes.
I am the first. Yeah. I mean, there's other female professors around, just not in the physics department. We now have a second one, which I'm absolutely delighted about.
It's just strange. So from coming from the bio side, where actually, certainly at York, gender equality is pretty good, and it's not something you don't have to think about much. It's just kind of invasive in it. There's many high impacting. In fact, I've got to say, at the department, my go-tos have been the likes of Ottilie and Liza, Debbie Smith. They have been my rocks in many aspects when it comes to grant writing, supporting and research and academia. But it's amazing that in the realm of physics, it's behind still, and I think it's still behind.
Yeah, I mean, if we look at the statistics, even the Institute of Physics are publishing, yeah, we've got a lot of work to do. I find it curious that you mentioned that these female professors have been your rocks, and often we see that the kind of, how do I put this, the kind of social or cultural load sometimes falls to women within departments. Or yeah, that's something that I see funders being increasingly aware of too.
Yeah, as I say, rocks, because they were the most supportive people in my career. Beyond my director, who's John Pillmore, Ottilie was very pushing my career, and Debbie also was really keen to help me progress my career, and so they were inspirational in driving that forward. I don't know why particularly them in the department. I guess Debbie, she was head of department and then pro vice chancellor for research, but Ottilie wasn't at the time. But yeah, they've certainly helped. Told me I should be leading the grant applications. Because I was in an atypical position, and to be leading grant applications wasn't the typical thing to be done. But they were like, no, you lead it. It makes sense for you to lead, and that was pretty rare at the time. It's good to see BBSRC is now really pushing that agenda, or the sort of technicians' commitment agenda, and the other supporting roles. But York was there back then. How daunting was it to be a professor at 34? You talked about imposter syndrome when you started your degree. That's pretty...
At that point, it's just another thing you do. You don't think about it. Other people use the title, and I guess the only other people that really use the title are students who are looking for an extension. Or yeah, that's it. That is exactly the only people who use it. And I'm not really big in titles, so I never really paid much attention to it, to be honest.
So what's on your credit card?
I don't know. I think it says doctor. Yeah, it does. Yeah, I didn't bother changing anything. Why would I do that?
Okay, and what's your 12-digit number?
It's I think and also my mother's maiden name is.
Sorry, that's just sad. I actually know my 12-digit number. Isn't that?
Yeah, I know my 16-digit numbers, because without those, forget it. 16. If it's a 12-digit number, you're not going anywhere, Peter.
No, I always have to check the last 4. Well, I don't want to be a liability. Come on. So, work on the Mesolens. That isn't where you started. You didn't start. Very much. I knew you from your laser work. So, super continuum lasers, from my recollection.
I mean, I guess that was not where I started really. I mean, I started building, like, we'll say proper lasers, where you start with a pump diode and you collimate it into a non-linear dielectric crystal, and you build a resonator around it, and then you try and mode lock it, you do something to tailor the output, and then building optical parametric oscillators because one can convert frequency, and that's kind of really where I started. And I then joined the Centre for Biophotonics I mentioned previously in this 3-month appointment. 3 months turned into 3 years, 3 months into years. And about a year into that appointment, I was working with an electrophysiologist called Alison Burney, who's at the University of Manchester. Not really a microscopist by training, but she could see that I was quite happy, as well as running the kind of day-to-day experiments within the Centre for Biophotonics Imaging Centre and facility to make sure that I never looked in a microscope until I was a postdoc. So this for me was a bit of a transform. Did she see I was enjoying, building lasers for microscopy? And she said she should apply for a fellowship, and I didn't know what a fellowship was. So She kind of talked me through the process a wee bit, and I applied for a bunch and get an interview to one, and I somehow managed to convince the panel that I could do something potentially useful. That was nice. And then I realised that I was going to have to do things, but I didn't know how to do all of these things. How do you apply for grants? How do you get equipment? How do you, so you're meant to hire people? How does all this work? Now, this coincides roughly with the time that Alison left to go to work at the University of Manchester. So there's me and these microscopes and not really much else. So I then returned, at least spiritually, to my home at the Department of Physics and started kind of getting a bit of guidance and support from those folks. Also trying to expand my networks through groups like Microscopical Society, Institute of Physics and so on, so that I could meet other people that knew about this stuff more than I did, because my first applications absolutely bombed because I didn't know what I was doing. And then you learn a bit about how to craft an application or write a paper and so on. And so the super continuum work, it was a curious one because I'd never planned to do that, but one of my collaborators had some of this photonic crystal fibre, and I said, can I use it? And he said, sure, knock yourself out. So I did some experiments. They took me about a week. I wrote the paper and then I disappeared to go to one of these big international meetings in the US to present other work. And it was accepted, and this was all good. And then I realised that I seem to have done something that's quite useful here, because other people seem interested in it, and I was getting a lot of emails and, you know, come and speak to us at the university or wherever. But the thing that made me realise that actually was more than I had thought was I went to yet another, a different focused microscopy meeting, and some academics who shall remain nameless appeared in front of me and said, "You Gail McConnell?" Yeah. Wait there, and disappeared and went to get other academics and brought them back. "We're not happy with you," you know, and I'm, you know, kind of junior fellow holders at this point. "We're not happy with you. You've scooped us. We were working on that for 3 years, and I've done these experiments, and like, you know, a week or two, written the paper, bashed it out. It's not a great paper, but it proved principle. It was enough kind of at the time, and I guess biophotonics was certainly in its infancy there. You could get away with a lot more than you probably could now." But I think there was also the kind of legal angle where, you know, there was a patent existing that like I held on the use of microstructured fibres for supercontinuum generation, and there was a bit of kind of protracted discussion with them. I'm still of the opinion that their patent doesn't necessarily hold.
So these academics, were they genuinely cross?
No, but I thought they were cross. I thought they were cross. You've really annoyed us because you've done this work. But as it turned out, they were like, "No, no, it's really good because it means we can now do something else based on this. We just refer to your paper and move on." But, you know, the sweat was running out of me. You know, oh my God, what do I do? I'm really annoyed. These people, these are big hitters. Oh God, this is the end of me. But no, it was all very cordial.
But you didn't name them. You kept them.
Of course. Why would I name them? They're nice people. They're good folk. They still work in the field. Yeah, it's nice. It's good.
So you moved, actually, is this, I don't know how long this picture is.
Oh, it's at least a week. No, I would say that I can tell based on the laser, so that's a Myra. That's a Myra that I believe we bought to build a CARS microscope, and that would be around 2009 or so. In fact, I can tell by what I'm wearing. Yeah, that's by 2009.
You can tell from what the glasses are.
I can also tell from because who took the photographs. So it was one of my PhD students of the time, Romello Amor, who was a very keen photographer. So we've got like hundreds of photos from around that time of social events and, you know, lunches out and things in the lab.
So this one's obviously seriously at work with a laser.
Oh, aye.
This one looks like something out of Scooby-Doo.
It's not a Scooby-Doo. I'm an international woman of mystery, Peter. What I really like about this photo is you don't know it's me unless you know me. Because it's really obviously me if you know me. But if you don't, who is that? But what you're looking at there is the glare from a 5-watt Verde in the wall behind me.
So you've got some great photos. And then obviously you started taking them yourself.
Well, there was a purpose behind that one. And it was to prove that, yes, I really was back in the building, and this was after the lockdown. So we were in a complete shutdown, March 2020. I managed to get back in at the end of June. And it really was to show people, we are now back. Look, this is okay. It's going to be fine. So that's why I'm in the lab wearing a saltire buff with a Mesolens behind me. Yeah.
That's a lot wider than I recall the early Mesolenses.
You say Mesolenses in plural there as if there are like hundreds of them. I think there are 4. So there's 3 in Strathclyde and 1 in Plymouth. The prototype is a bit narrower. So, that's longer, thinner, is about 90 centimetres long, I think. That one's kind of short and dumpy, basically. But yeah, that has 3 correction collars, unlike the prototype, which only has 2.
It is very nice. I actually like the face covering as well. Pretty cool. Yes, you've had to take your own photos. So you've got now a lab. I don't know if this is, I'll just grab a photo. Is this your current team?
No,
that's an old team, isn't it?
That was taken a long time ago.
Oh, yeah, it is a old team.
So yeah, that was taken in October 2008. And the reason I know, in fact, it was November 2008, it was very early November. And the people that were looking at here around me are my research group of the time. So Leja, Kyle Gardner, John Harris, Elric Esposito, who was also my first PhD student, who was second from the right, and Greg Norris, who then did a PhD studentship with me and went on to do a postdoc. This is at the Nexus Young Life Scientist of the Year Award, which was a kind of Scottish competition. And I was awarded this in 2008. The reason that I remember that it was November is because I ended up on the cover of this Nexus magazine. And I'm wearing in this photo here, and my PhD advisor came up to me and he said, I didn't know you at first. Was it Halloween? So, yeah. It's like, and you can see he was not pleased with whatever it was that I'd done or was wearing or something. So that was that.
It's noticeable that everyone is quite conservatively dressed. And so this is possibly your latest lab photo, which is far more colourful.
Yeah, that's what we normally wear day to day.
This is RuPaul's Drag Race, or everyone's
I think it's Gail's Drag Race. Yeah. So I am RuPaul, just above in the pink dress in the centre. But yeah, there's some crackers there. Yeah, that one.
And obviously, over there is Brad.
Yes. It looks as if he's making a speedy getaway from this, as if I'm having nothing to do with it. But yeah, it makes a change from his spangly purple jumpsuit that he wears to Plymouth. So, day wear, evening wear.
Also different to the skits that he does down at MRC as well.
Absolutely, I'm sure you'll have seen the photos in his own podcast previously of his fancy dress for those.
I think for Secret Santa, someone's got to buy him an Ali G outfit.
Don't, because it will encourage the accents. We have an ongoing discussion about what accents are allowed. In the confines of my office, you can use whatever accent you like, and that's fine. But, affecting the Japanese accent in the Japanese restaurant quite loudly maybe isn't the best idea. But for him, it's just entirely about entertainment, and I have to understand and support that.
So I asked you what you wanted to be when you were 10. You obviously then wanted to be a scientist. And
I didn't know what a scientist was when I was 10.
No, I've never chosen to be a scientist. Good grief, there's football in the world. Or baking, just I like bread. But
why bake when you can go to a shop and buy a cake that somebody else has already made? Your life's too short for that.
Because shops used to close and weren't open on Sundays. Why would you want
to
that?
No, not having that.
You're now, I won't quote your age, but what would you be if you could be anything today? Work-wise.
Work-wise?
Work-wise. What job would you do? What would be your dream?
Anything else? I don't know. See, I love being outdoors. But the big problem with being outdoors in Scotland is that about 60% of the year it's absolutely freezing, and I don't do well in the cold. So I quite fancy living somewhere with a better climate than Scotland, where you can be outdoors year round. I guess if I try and kind of combine interests, and some of the things I've learned since I was 10 or so, I enjoy the kind of marine biology and so on. So maybe somewhere a bit slightly tropical, but marine biology, I quite fancy that.
So look out, Hawaii.
Yeah, I've never been to Hawaii, but that a minute.
No, not me.
I hear good things. So.
Yeah, why have we got a big conference in Hawaii?
So there's a well-known non-linear optics conference that certainly used to take place in Hawaii, and I never made it to it, but yeah, career fail on my part.
Yeah, needs to make a comeback. That's amazing. Okay, so let's fast forward another 20, 30, 40 years, I'm not guessing your age, to when you retire.
Oh no, I'm going to retire far sooner than that, come on. I might not have a pension by the time I get there, but I'm going to do it.
So are you going to cling on, or are you going to, cheers, now I'm going to do something?
Right, okay, so if I think about it seriously, if the grant money's there and we're able to keep going, I'll keep going. Realistically, I think, without being too negative, the funding situation is dire, and it's so challenging that I can see it gets to the point where it's no longer enjoyable, it's no longer tenable. And so I think it would be that would push me out. But yeah, I think if I did it young enough that I can go and enjoy my retirement, then I would be okay with that.
What would you do?
I guess, well, I'll quote what one of my students said recently when I spoke to them, and I said, I'm just retired, don't get the money in and so on. And he said, Gail, if you're retired, they said your thighs would be like that within about a year. And I said, oh, well, what do you mean? He said, because you'd be out on your bike all day. He said, you'd be up and down mountains, you'd be up and down the roads. He said, you just never stop moving. And I said, yeah, you're probably right. So, yeah.
Cycling a lot. So you wouldn't just finish Fortnite?
Oh, no, Fortnite. No interest in Fortnite. Fallout, yes. Fortnite, it's a different beast, Peter. I'm not paying attention. Yeah, so...
Sorry, Gail, it's just the accent.
What do you mean? There's nothing wrong with it. You've known me for 19 years. If you put this out there already, we don't need subtitles. You don't live that far away. But,
so, what's the next big challenge? Without telling what your grant proposal is so you don't get scooped, what do you see in the field as the next big challenge?
Right, okay, so I guess as far as the Mesolens, which is one of the main projects concerned, I think we're just starting to scratch the surface about how we can study more of the fixed or the living animal. I see an explosion of techniques at the kind of mesoscale, macro scale, imminent, probably in the next kind of 10, 20 years. None of these developments are going to happen quickly, but I think that they will be important.
And moving through now, so challenging, sort of next big challenge, but think about challenging times. What's been the most difficult time in your career?
I think I've spoken about it previously, and it was at the point where I made the step from being a postdoc to being an independent researcher, because I hadn't a clue what I was doing. I'm not saying I know what I'm doing now, but I know a bit more about what I'm doing now. This was just a baptism of fire. I look at early career researchers now, I don't envy them. I think it's a lot more difficult to come through the system, the 20 years later than I did. It's a lot more competitive. I would not be competitive at the moment with papers that if equivalent I had at the time. I think that a lot of the kind of fellowship schemes do a better job now. And that's not to disparage the fellowship I had. I think they just do a better job now. And institutions generally have a better awareness that early career researchers do need support. Otherwise, they won't succeed. And it's in everybody's interest for them to succeed, including the individual. So.
And what about the most fun time in your career? What's been one of the, if you to go back and relive a year, what would be the most fun period?
Oh, there's so many. I mean, it's impossible. It's like choose your favourite child or your favourite pet or whatever. I mean, no, that's impossible, because where there's stuff that, you know, you complain about, like, you know, the fact that it was kind of difficult with funding or didn't know what it was doing, there was still lots of fun stuff, like the simplicity of buying your first optical table and realising that if you run your hand along it a certain way, it makes a fun noise. And so, you know, I have a video clip somewhere of some of my early PhD students basically drum and bassing it with this new optical table. There's nothing on it. Yeah, there's nothing on it for a reason. I don't know how to purchase anything else, but there's the kind of offset of this is fun stuff. So yeah, no, there's a lot of really good stuff. I mean, some standout kind of points are, you know, getting the first Mesolens up and running, seeing the first results there, the first supercontinuum results, when you see that this is actually going to work. Seeing these intracolony channels and biofilms for the first time. We've never seen them before, we didn't know they existed. Wow, what's that? Right, we need to know more about this. And then it kind of seeds, you know, lots of other activities. So yeah, difficult to choose just one.
So going back to the Mesolens again then, obviously you've got a very close working relationship with Brad. How did that even start? There you are on a supercontinuum laser type side. There you got Brad, who's this god of microscopy. You know, you've got two worlds that have come together. How did that initiate? I have no idea.
It initiated thanks to what at that point was the Plymouth Optical Microscopy course. And it's a slightly strange one. I went to the course in 2004, which was the second time that the course had run. And the person I mentioned previously, Alison Gurney, who was my line manager, had got in contact with David Ogden, who she worked with previously, to say, oh, I see that you're running this course, can I send a couple of people on it? And he said, yeah, okay, we'll see what we can do. So apparently we turned up, me and this colleague of mine, but the people in Plymouth had absolutely no expectation that we were going to be there, so they had to find somewhere for us to stay and all the other things that you don't want to have when you're organising a meeting. But anyway, so I went to this Plymouth course, absolutely loved it, had a great time, learned about all these microscopy things. Cells, right, okay, tell me, I mean, Roger Chen, I think, was speaking that year about folk proteins. It's like, come on, you know, this was just an eye-opener for me. It was so immersive, 10 days, non-stop microscopy, effectively. And one of the speakers there was, and sadly I forget the guy's name, but he gave a seminar about lasers. So I thought, like, I don't know about this, so, you know, I'm looking forward to it, because it's always nice to hear about things you already know. So the guy presented, and, you know, he spoke about lasers, how you can work with them and what they can do. And it was quite a flashy talk. You know, I remember he was wearing a waistcoat with some lighting in the back. You know, it was quite nice, you know, quite like that. Nice touch. Always for the showman, you know. And at the end of the talk, thanks very much, any questions? And Brad put his hand up and said, I've recently heard about these white lasers. Do you know anything about these? And the speaker said, I'm afraid I don't. So I said, well, I know about these because that's kind of what I'm doing, I'm building them. So after the talk, Brad and I kind of migrate, we have a wee chat about how do you build these? Can you bring one to Cambridge? And I said, well, I can't bring one. I said, but I can bring the bits to build once we planned it. And a couple of months later, I went to visit Brad and Steffi Reichel in LMB, and we built this wee supercontinuum source, and we tried a few things out, and it kind of all started from there. So it had nothing to do with the Mesolens, but we kept in touch, and then I joined the Plymouth course as a lecturer, and then as an organiser, and then ended up running the thing for a while. And so yeah, it's been over a long period of time covering different aspects of
it. Interesting. And how much persuasion were you needed to move into sort of the more optics side? Because again, it is good to have that spread, that diversity, and changing your science and not just staying on one tack all the time. So it's almost a different set of skills as well, isn't it?
So sorry, do you mean how did I move into optics?
Yeah, well, no, from the Mesolens, the actual, so you've gone from the supercontinuum laser, so it's sort of generating light, to now focusing light.
Right, I see. So the question, if I understand correctly, and apologies if not, is how did you move from building lasers to get to anything to do with microscopes?
Sorry, I missed that bit, sorry.
Sorry. Right, so.
Okay, how were you persuaded to move from generating light into the work on actually the lenses itself, the actual optical lenses?
Right,
for the microscope, not for the laser end.
Right, got it. So, we were building these lasers for N years, N being approximately 6. And the more that I learned about the laser, the more that I became curious about the microscope itself. And thinking about what are the limits, because it came from a position of what are the limits for lasers? Because people are buying these lasers for companies. These lasers are normally developed for things, applications that are not microscopy, but they're being thrown at microscopes because that's the thing that microscopists need. So I spent a long time developing these purpose-built lasers for microscopy rather than just lasers. Then I realised that the laser is just one part of the microscope. And we really should use what we know about optics to think about the other parts of the microscope. So then it was, how can we develop new microscopy methods? And as a natural extension of that, it's what do we need to do to the microscope to support these new applications, which as I learned more and more about the cell biology as we went through, their importance became evident to me. And so the Mesolens, although that was work that Brad had started in Cambridge, it was a natural evolution of the project that when Brad was approaching retirement, we started chatting about, so what happens here? That it became a collaborative project, and the whole project moved to Strathclyde to take advantage of what we knew about optics, but also what John Dempster could do with software. And, you know, there was just a kind of number of good reasons to move it at that time.
Still, the Mesolens is here. There's 4, I think you said. How are you going to make it? Oh, that's a really stupid question. How are you going to make it big? It's already big. How are you going to make it more widely accessible?
Right, so that's one of the challenges, because the Mesolens is big, as you see, but the size isn't the problem. It is the complexity and the precision with which these elements need to be ground polished and mounted. So, you know, each Mesolens is taking months to make. It's not a standard manufacturing one. I mean, we're quite lucky at Strathclyde that we do have the Advanced Manufacturing Centre. We're starting to talk to them about how we could potentially make things better. But realistically, this is going to have to be we prove principle, and somebody else with better manufacturing capability than we have is going to take on.
We'll have a chat after.
Okay.
Just some thoughts. Anyway, some quick fire questions.
Oh.
PC or Mac?
PC. Tried Macs, didn't get it. No. Next.
McDonald's or Burger King?
Neither. Yeah, they both leave me cold.
I knew you'd say that.
Why would you know I would say that?
Because I know you. Because I think we probably had this conversation in the past.
We probably had it sitting outside that terrible place in Genoa when you were berating me about the fun woman. Yeah.
Early bird or night owl?
Both. I like getting up early, trying to get the exercise out the way. Then I normally fade sometimes during mid-afternoon. Would love an office nap. Have been known to take an office nap. And then I normally kind of come back to life in the evening again.
How long's your office nap?
Varies. Office naps are very, very rare. But yeah, normally about half an hour.
Ooh, long. No, 10 to 15 minutes tops.
No, I mean, that's just barely, that's a long blink.
Tidy or messy?
Okay, right, so it looks quite tidy behind me. That's just because everything's in these cupboards. I'm reasonably tidy, or at least I have a threshold that's reasonably low. Normally at least once a month, and our research group chat is, okay, the place is getting a tip, you need to tidy it. I find it difficult to work if there's too much around me just to distract me, because I will look at something else and then entertain that, or yeah, easily distracted. That's why I don't really like mice.
That's fair. So what was that again? Sorry, I was just looking out the window. Come on.
This is taking all of my attention, Peter.
Tea or coffee?
Oh, right, okay. This is a tricky one because I like both. And I decaffeinated about 2 years ago.
How were the headaches?
Sorry?
How were the headaches when you went decaf?
Well, it was because of headaches that I decaffeinated. Anyway, it turned out it was nothing to do. There was nothing serious, but yeah, basically just other stuff going on. But it was easier than I thought. It was a lot easier than I thought. And then we're returning to some kind of semblance of normal now, which means that, you go and get a coffee somewhere. And so, one coffee is kind of flooring me. But yeah, I'm happy with tier coffee as long as it doesn't have milk in it. Absolutely fine.
Okay. Wine or beer?
Okay. Wine with a meal. Beer. In my head, beer is going to be great because when I'm thinking about beer, it's after a long day of being in the hills, and psychologically, I'm going to really look forward to this. But normally, by the time I get home or I'm near the beer, yeah, I've changed my mind. I don't really want it. So we'll go with wine if we need to choose.
So there you go. Talk about being in hills.
Yeah. Right. So this is somewhere in Glencoe, and one of my students was given a presentation on their work. And I was on annual leave that day, but I really wanted to see the student give the presentation. So there is me in the descent from, I believe it's Buchel Etig Moor, where I've managed to get fairly decent Wi-Fi, and I'm sitting down with the phone so that I can watch the student presentation before we carry on. So yeah.
But no Wi-Fi here.
Oh, no. I mean, that's a rare event, what you see there, because I don't normally do snow. I freeze too easily and I stop functioning. So yeah, but yeah, I'm just quite happy to be outside. And it's not snowing, it has been snowing. So past, future tense, present tense there are quite important.
So it's not just cycling. You like hiking and cycling? Any other exercise?
No, I'd say that's probably about it. That's enough at my age, as you keep reminding me about my age.
I don't think we're so different in age, Gail.
Who knows?
Chocolate or cheese?
Yeah, probably cheese. I'm not a big chocolate fan. A wee bit every now and again, okay. Cheese, I'm really fussy. Because in my, again, cheese is fine when it's straight out of the fridge. See that cheese is just in line a wee bit. And I know that's going to annoy quite a lot of people, but I feel it should be kind of close to room temperature and all the rest of it. That gives me the fear. It's the same with a glass of milk. If I see a glass of milk sitting out, if it's just been poured straight out of the fridge, I can look at it. I have had to leave the room when people are having a nice glass of milk that they're really enjoying, but it just turns my stomach.
Well, if it's not cold or just...
If it's not cold,
yeah.
Because then in my head, the process I'm going through is that milk's getting warm, it's going to turn, it's going to smell, oh, this is going to be terrible. Even though I realise, scientifically that this is going to take hours, it's not going to take minutes, but yeah, I'm already at the hours.
See, that's why I never have cereal at hotels, because I can never trust the milk that you might put on it.
Yeah, I mean, milk is, I'm not saying it's the work of Satan and all his little friends, but it's not great. I mean, you've got to wonder about the person that first discovered milk and what they were doing to extract the milk for the cow,
Quickly moving on. TV or book?
Or book. I have a very, very short attention span. And so I can only really watch things that are that kind of 22 minutes long without getting totally bored. Or if it's got subtitles. I'm quite good with subtitles because then I'm doing two things at once and I'm reading as well as watching and paying attention, and it holds my attention better. But yeah, a book will engage me much more readily than any TV or film.
So what type of books do you read?
Oh, I'll read anything. I'll read absolutely anything. In the last week, I think I finished Miriam Margolyes's autobiography, This Much Is True. I read something else, and now I'm reading something else again. Oh,
memorable then.
There was something, and it was a really nice day, and I read it in an afternoon. I can't remember what it was. I need to check Goodreads,
I can't wait for you to come back and say, I remember now, it's how to boost your memory in 20 minutes.
No, I definitely wouldn't be reading that. But yeah, I mean, one of my students asked me recently what my Desert Island book would be, and I can immediately say Moby Dick, because it's quite a nice long book, and you know, I quite like short chapters. Short chapters are good. But I think my favourite non-fiction book is Animals Without Backbones from Bushbound.
Okay. And thinking of Desert Island then, what will be your...
I've remembered what my book is. It's called Phosphate Rocks, and it's by Fiona Erskine, and it's a fiction book about, she's a chemical engineer who, I mean, she is, the author is a chemical engineer, and she writes about a chemical engineering experience, but it's a fiction piece, and it's about finding a body in a factory, and the objects that surround the death, and how the police can therefore identify who did this. So yeah. So there's a bit of science, it's very technical. So it's kind of fiction interspersed with, you know, a chapter on like the element phosphorus, for example, and then there's another chapter. So yeah, would recommend. It's also by a Scottish author, so I have to recommend it. But yeah, also would recommend.
A good plug.
Definitely.
Definitely. Thinking of Desert Island, if you could take one luxury item with you, what would you take? What's your favourite singular non-essential item?
Well, see, I mean, if we're playing proper Desert Island disc rules, I mean, I'd probably go with a toothbrush.
Okay. I used to like that with Chris Evans. Don't forget a toothbrush.
Yeah. I don't know, I think it started off quite well, but then it just became too extravagant and ridiculous.
And then got taken off air for controversial reasons.
Exactly.
If I recall correctly, I think Sean Ryder might have had something to do with that.
Oh, was that not TGIF?
Is that TGIF?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
I know. Because that was on, they had to move the broadcast time and it was early.
Yeah, and then delayed 10 seconds because of...
Yeah, steering.
You're right. Oh, no, the theme tune's getting in my head. Anyway, moving on. What's your favourite film?
Right, so we've already established I'm not really big in films. If I'm asked to choose...
Too long?
Well, yeah, it's too long. But I'm going with Amelie. It's beautifully shot. Yeah, it's a lovely film.
So you're going for the how well directed and yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'm not really big in kind of romance, people function elements or anything. It's just a beautiful film.
Okay. You must have seen a Star Wars and a Star Trek.
I've seen them. Yeah.
So you wouldn't choose either.
Wait,
go. Would you be a Star Wars person or a Star Trek person? If you had to choose one or the other, which would
right. If it's just either or, then I would have said original Star Wars, later Star Trek.
Okay. And what's your pet hate?
There's so many, just really fussy. I guess that's a struggle.
Indecisiveness?
No, because that's me. That's definitely me. And I think a pet hate is probably unnecessary noise. No, let me explain. See if you're sitting next to somebody and they're tapping, like, just humming, or, there's just unnecessary noise. I don't mind necessary noise. Unnecessary noise drives me insane. Tapping, just...
It's like tapping, humming, whistling.
Aye, all that. Just a bit of racket that's not needed. And it's like, why are you making this noise? This is not required.
I just cannot wait for the next conference. I'm going to sit 2 rows behind you to make sure I'm not in arm's length of you, and I might just start humming in the background.
I'm just a wee, kind of like, but don't do it like a song, or I mean, it should just kind of.
Yeah, I'll do it so she can't even make out what it is. How's that, to make it really annoying?
That's fine, because now that you've told me you're going to do this, I'm going to know that it's you, and I'm going to sit one of my students next to you so that they can punch you in the leg every time you do it.
Okay, I'll set someone else up to do it for me. I'll still get hit. I know. I'll still get hit.
Oh,
okay.
we're not any violence.
But what do you most love? Go on, what are your favourite
What?
things?
What are my favourite things? I guess my partner, my family, pets. Yeah.
What pets have you got?
Sorry?
What pets do you have?
I've got 2 and a bit cats, and it's not a fraction of a cat, it's not a percentage of a cat, but we have 2 cats and a cat visitor
Ah,
who it's a kind of hashtag not my cat, but it's kind of moved in. We know where it lives and we know where its owner is, and the owner's hopefully unlikely to watch this. You're welcome to your cat back if you are watching this. But the cat, we've tried driving the cat back, kind of leaving it at the front door, and the cat's back with us 15 minutes later. So yeah.
You sent me some more pictures, and I quite like this one. So this was me.
This is
MMC. This is MMC.
2017. Now, what I like about this photo is not me. It's the many faces of Alex Sosik. Now, if you look at Alex Sosik in each one of these, he has exactly the same impression. He's not moved, but yet in every one he's wearing a different wig.
But Tim's changing. Tim's the guy next to him. Tim's
certainly moved. Ali has moved. I've moved. But it's the many faces of Alex Sosik. It's like we've wheeled him in. There's a statue, just put a different wig on. Face you off. This is my fridge. Every time I see it,
So did you actually stay there? You just take a wig off and put another wig on him, and so this is those listening. This is a photo booth.
It's a weekend at Bernie's, but with Alex Sosik.
Love it. I love your posy pout as well on that one.
Oh right, yeah. I should explain that the cleavage is entirely not real.
Do you know? I hadn't even noticed. It just looked at who was in it. I hadn't even gone that far down.
It's tremendously awful. It's Alex. I just he's like a statue. It's weekend at Bernie's.
So, thinking of being loud. This is you on a soapbox, I presume, in the middle of somewhere.
Right. So I'm still thinking about the many faces of Alex Sosik. So I'm at a loss as to when this was, but it's roughly about 2015, 2014, thereabouts. Anyway, I think this was the first soapbox science event that had been held in Glasgow. And I was approached by a colleague to say, would you be interested in doing this? I said, yeah, of course, I'll give that a go. So I am in this photo, the thing I'm holding is a cardboard version of the Mesolens. Difficult to see, but that's what I'm doing. And I was there to talk about imaging and the advantages of microscopy and all the other things. So yeah, there's me in my white lab coat, and I'm outside Kelvin Grove Museum in Glasgow. So I'm in the West End. It's a Sunday and it's 11 AM. Now, Glasgow isn't exactly known for being busy at Sunday morning at 11 AM. And I want to say this must have been about June time. So the weather's okay, that's why I'm not wearing hat and gloves, otherwise I would be freezing. And there's a few people milling about, and it's going okay. See the thing I mentioned about unnecessary noise? Now, we're going to come back to that now, because while I'm talking to this small assembled group about fluorescence, in the distance I hear there's a banging noise, and it's a thump, and it's a very distinctive thumping, and then there's whistling, and I know what's coming next. So what is coming down the street is an orange walk. So I'm guessing I maybe need to explain that the Orange Order is an international Protestant fraternal society or order, and it has its basis in Northern Ireland, and it's primarily associated with Ulster Protestants, particularly those of Ulster Scots heritage, and they have marches, and this includes a yearly march that's close to the 12th of July, and they have a kind of marching season, where the band will process down the street with pipes and drums and flutes and everybody in their finery, except it's really, really loud. So I'm talking to this tiny group of people about, the merits of science and imaging and fluorescence, and I'm competing with an orange walk who are about 100 metres away. And at this point, I think, right, I've you know what, I'm just going to stop talking because I cannot compete with this racket that's proceeding down the street. It was only a little one, so that meant it only took about 10 minutes to pass, but you're only on that soapbox for an hour. So yeah, it was an interesting challenge, but it really did come down in the end to almost science versus religion. And I think because I was still in the sort of science one.
I love the analogy at the end. We are up to the hour mark, and you sent me some more photos, and I have to show at least one of these, which is this one. Because you must have been, what, 3?
Yeah, that's me. That's me. I mean, I don't think I've aged that badly. You can still tell it's me, I think. Yeah. I'm outside my front door. So yeah, that's me.
And then one other, which is, this picture makes it look like you're running for Parliament.
Yeah, I mean, it's something. It looks like the photo on the back of a book jacket, where you're kind of, I know about this subject, but yeah, one of the students turned me into a meme, and I think it's something like an objective lens with an NA 5 times higher than a conventional lens, and at the bottom it says, "Tell me more," and that's exactly what the face looks like. Now, that photo was taken by a technician who was an excellent photographer and is kind of semi-professional, and he spent about an hour trying to get a photo of me for a thing, and nothing really worked. And I sat down and I looked at the window and he said, "Don't move." So I did not move, and that's the shot that he took.
It is a very good picture. And finally, how would you compare yourself today to the you 20 years ago?
20 years ago, right? So I'm trying to think what age I'm more settled. I'm more tired now, obviously, not then. Yeah, I'm happier.
Still got the same energy?
I'd say it's used differently, but yeah, I don't feel I've really slowed down that much. Yep. Ask me in another 20 years, you know, that's if I'm still alive.
Yeah, you still have the energy, that's for sure.
Yeah, no, I'm not totally wasted away yet. Peter, don't rule me out.
I'm not just no. Right, on that note, I'm going to stop before I just dig a big hole for myself. Gail, thank you very much. Thank you everyone who's been listening to this episode of the Microscopists. Please do subscribe to whichever channel and go back and have a look at some of the previous ones. You've heard about Brad, for example, that's one of the previous guests. Gail, entertaining as always. Thank you.
Thank you.
I did miss a proper drink with that one though, but thank you.
Some water, that'll do.
Thank you for listening to The Microscopists, a bite-sized bio podcast sponsored by Zeiss Microscopy. To view all audio and video recordings from this series, please visit bitesizebio.com/the-microscopists.